Success isn't given, it's earned. And earning it means becoming the person who deserves it. The bottom line is where we cut through the chaos to simplify success, uncovering the strategies, mindset, and resilience it takes to win. Real stories, expert insights, and practical tools. Because the only way to the top is by putting in the work. This is The Bottom Line.
Welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Ryan Herpin, and today we're talking about a game changer in business, relationships. Not just connections, not just networking, but real authentic relationships that lead to long-term success. It's easy to get caught up in transactions, like closing deals, hitting quotas, chasing the next opportunity. But the truth is, business isn't just about what you sell. It's about the trust, credibility, and value you bring to the people you serve. The strongest businesses aren't built on sales tactics. They're built on relationships. I know it sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised how quick we can lose that. And if you've ever wondered, why do some people seem to get endless referrals while others struggle? Or how do you turn contacts into long-term partnerships? How about what's the secret to earning trust and keeping it? If you've ever asked those questions or wondered these things, this episode is for you. But before we get into solutions, let's talk about the real problem. So many people in business are focused on closing the next deal, hitting their numbers, or getting the sale, that they completely overlook the valuable asset that they have, and that is relationships. How often have you seen people burn bridges just to make a quick dollar? How often have you met someone who only reaches out when they need something? We all know someone like that. And we also know that's not sustainable in the way that we build success. The real question is, are you building your business on transactions or trust? If you're focused only on what you can get, your success will always be short term. But when you focus on the people, the partnerships, and the value you bring, that's when the opportunities truly start to multiply and compound. That's why I'm excited to introduce our guest today, someone who has built a career on the foundation of relationships, and someone that I've had the privilege of getting to know over the past year, Mr. Ben Sinclair. He is a branch manager and senior loan officer with Highlands Residential Mortgage. Ben has built his career on trust, value, and long game rather than that short-term, just transactional basis. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm happy to be here today.
And I want to dive right in, man. You've got a beautiful brain. I love the way you think on relationships. So I want to share that with the world. Let's get right to the bottom line. Excellent. Why do you believe relationships are more valuable than transactions in business?
Well, it's a long game. If you're going to have a career in something, and it's you're not really coached that way when you get in. You're coached to hit your numbers, move, jump. But I've been doing it long enough to where, I've got some customers who've come back to me, I've done 5, 6, 7 loans for, just building relationships will sustain your business. It takes a little longer. It's not a get rich quick scheme, but the relationship, like you said, builds the trust and it produces sustainability in any market. Anybody can do a ton of transactions when, like during the pandemic when rates were 3%. It was raining loans from the sky. Shortly thereafter, the landscape changed, and it got a little harder. And the same people who fed my family, in 2005 through the downturn in 2008 and after that are the same ones now. Relationships. I've closed 2 loans in the past, 3 months. On relationships that I made in the credit union business before I even started, doing mortgages. So those just out of the blue, I get a call from the president of a large credit union in Dallas Fort Worth. I did his loan and I just closed his daughter's loan. So,
wow. So that's a great example of how a relationship can also kind of branch into other opportunities. Like you said, he also did his daughter's loan. I mean, I wouldn't pass my kids off to somebody I don't trust and know, at least to a certain degree. So that makes me wonder, what separates a transactional business person from a relationship-driven professional?
I think, it's kind of an attitude. If you care about people and you care about doing a good job, like that, the guy at the credit union, man, he was my boss and we ended up on a deer lease together. Then my dad came, and that relationship developed through that. So it's not always through business. Some of it's, was personal, but it developed into a business relationship. But, and people know, customers know when they're a transaction and they know when you care. One of the things you do is you follow up with people and you don't sell them. You just call them and check on them. It's like, how you doing, Ryan? How are the kids? You keep notes. You take an interest in their family, what they're doing, maybe who they like, in sports. And you have a periodic, check in with them. And you never really ask for business. You just maintain the relationship. And like we said before, the scoreboard takes care of itself. The business comes. So transactional, it's easy to get in that mindset, but over the long haul, a good relationship wins out every time.
I really like how you said that. And it really highlights how it's like an investment, just like any other kind of financial investment or time investment. You're investing in people and in the relationship, and the payout is trust and understanding. And, in reality, something I like to think about, even with my consulting firm, is there are so many other businesses out there and people that do what I do, but what sets me apart? Am I just someone you find on Google? Or am I somebody that you ran into, we talked about cars or fishing or wrestling or something, and then you found out, oh, he also can help my business, right? It's developing that relationship first that develops that trust, right? So I want to ask, what's the biggest mistake people make when trying to build business relationships?
I think follow-up is key. You don't get a great relationship in a day. And you have to take an interest in people. And transactions are cold, relationships are warm. And for me, it was just, it was natural for me, right? I got lucky in that I make friends easily. I talk to people. I've picked up a loan in the grocery store line at Kroger before, just visiting with the lady in front of me. And it didn't start out as, hey, do you need a mortgage? That's never that's not how you lead into it.
Yeah, that would have been creepy.
She said something funny. I laughed. We started talking. She asked me what I did. I gave her a business card. Didn't think about it. 3 weeks later, I get a loan application from her. Now that's the short game. I've chased. Realtors are my main referral source, but I get a lot of business from, people like you, Ryan, people like Willie at the credit union. I started out as an underwriter. So even those connections, other banking connections, networking with people, it's just if you never talk to them, after you close the deal, I mean, you already invested, the time, the effort to get them to the finish line. And they're going to buy again. People are going to buy again, and I enjoy. I've done borrowers from back in the days, kids loans. That means wow. I've been in the business too long, but those relationships, how your parents are stupid when you're 20, but by the time you're 30, they're pretty smart. Well, and that's about the time they start buying houses. And they ask mom and dad who they used, and I ended up getting a phone call and develop relationships with the kids, and get stories about their parents that who I've known for 20 years. So it's just a warm, fulfilling way to do business. If you just make it a natural part of your process, I mean, everyone doesn't work. It is sales, right? It's a numbers game. So don't think you're gonna, I went out with a couple of girls who didn't like me back in the day, right? So, but you just work at it, and you got to be genuine, and you got to care about people, and help whenever you can, whether that's with a loan or, I had a whole bunch of friends when I flooded in Harvey come rip all the sheetrock out of my house. And I didn't even know I had that I built relationships. So it had nothing to do with business. It was people helping me from the relationships I built. And that was, that was a very satisfying, humbling feeling that all these people wanted to come, do something that would have taken me and my son, 2 weeks. We knocked it out in 2 days. So,
Wow.
And it was all from relationships I built.
I think that's a really good way to highlight some of those additional benefits and great aspects of building those relationships, right? Yes, we can talk all day about how relationships help business, but there's also that aspect of how relationships can help you in life in all different stages. Like I remember, it's funny, when I first moved here from Michigan, I didn't really know anybody. I wasn't sure, how I was going to build those relationships, how I was going to find friends, that type of deal. Went to the gym, started going to the gym, made some friends there, and it turned into, I needed to move. All of a sudden, I've got all these volunteers that want to help me. I've got all these people that want to spend time with me, grow a relationship with me, and they ended up turning into connections for me later, even or even having my son. They show up to birthday parties, get them tons of gifts. So it helps outside of just business. There's so many different ways that relationships can truly benefit us. But I will say in business consistently, like with what I do, if I build a relationship with you, better yet, let me reframe that actually. How could you trust me with your business if you don't know if I'm trustworthy? If you don't know I'm a good steward of my business, of my finances, of my disciplines, right? It's kind of the same thing when you really look at it. But I love where this conversation is going. I'm truly enjoying this, and I've got so much more that I want to ask you. And I think this next group of questions, if I was listening, I'd want to grab a pen and a pad, because I want to dig a little bit deeper and get into some of the nitty gritty of what impacts this really has and how things can be changed overall based on these relationships we have. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back to pick more of Ben's beautiful brain and get to the bottom line of what relationships can do in business.